Okay, this is just to remind you, this is Chris Miller of Greenpeace US and Michael Dorsey, Professor of Global Environmental Policy. Aha, we've got a question. Franny in Wales, which of the presidential candidates is our best hope? Can I ask you, Michael Dorsey? Best hope, I think, in terms of climate change action.
Well, in terms of full disclosure, I've been helping Senator Obama, and I'm hopeful that he's definitely the one that's going to bring significant change. The issue is, how he's going to fare in these early primaries. I think in terms of, scoping and laying out plans for a very new way to run the country, all the chips are in his court. The challenge will be how he deals with former President Clinton's wife. Yeah.
That is a big challenge. What is her? Have either of or any of the candidates said anything directly about climate change yet? Maybe I could ask Chris Miller whether they've actually uttered words on the subject.
Yeah, I mean, I think Senator Obama is strong on the issue. The fact is, Senator Clinton is strong on the issue, as is John Edwards. I think the point is that certainly on the Democratic side, that these candidates are staking out relatively strong positions on the issue. Senator Clinton has talked about re-engaging internationally on this issue. So I think, as you sort of step back and take a look at the Democratic field, I think regardless of who gets the nomination there, I think we're going to be in much better shape. I think as you look to the Republicans, the situation is much different. We've seen very little discussion of it in the Republican primary. Senator John McCain, who's I think at this point quite a long shot, but has been a leader from the Republican side. But I think beyond that, we've heard very little from the other Republican candidates.
Yeah. What about? Do you think whoever gets in, they're going to agree to targets, or are targets kind of un-American targets in terms of cuts? Because that's one of the things that's missing in these negotiations. The U.S. has opted out of this round of cuts by industrialized countries, or will the U.S. kind of avoid that, whoever it is?
Well, I mean, if history is any indicator, it seems perhaps unlikely that Mrs. Clinton may be committed to targets. I think the new perspective that Senator Obama brings to the race, as well as his vision for a different kind of administration, is probably the strongest indicator that he would certainly be committed to binding targets. And probably what we're seeing here in Bali is that, and also since we came from the IPCC meetings in Valencia a few weeks before getting here in Bali, is that the indicators are now coming up that we need to go further, much further than the old sort of 80% reductions, by 2050. We may need to go much further than that. And I think an Obama administration would be open to that. And I think pretty much the Democratic field is certainly considering and looking at that new data that's coming in that says that really we're probably going to have to do a lot more than was previously thought to really address this problem adequately.
Well, I want to ask you about consumerism, because that's obviously a big issue in the U.S. I'd just like to ask you, Professor Dorsey, do you have any sense of your students? Are they involved? Are they interested in this topic, or is it considered a bit abstruse and wacky?
My students are tremendously not just interested, but they're engaged and involved. There's one of them that's here, and there may be others that I don't know of that haven't come up to me yet. And they've not only been interested in the issues, but they've been involved in local campaigns in the U.S., both in the state of New Hampshire, and some of them in their own hometowns and municipalities, working on something called Step It Up, which folks can, look up online. It's a big campaign to really put pressure on representatives to really move this issue. So they're interested, and then they're working on this, and they're really trying to really push for change. And I think that they are the real catalysts that are part of the growing and really deep and broad citizen movement in the U.S. It's students that are driving that movement.
Okay, here's another. I have to ask Greenpeace campaigner Chris Miller this one. This has come from Noortje from Netherlands. It's probably Noortje from Netherlands. You mentioned Second Life as a forum for changing public opinion. But does public opinion matter in Bali? This is the sort of question, actually, we've had quite a few variations of this. Here's the talks, people are locked in rooms. How on earth does public opinion, and especially for campaigners like you, make any difference?
I do think public opinion is very important in these meetings, and I think you can see the way public opinion impacts this process between the first and second week. The first week you have lower level bureaucrats who are here negotiating on behalf of their governments. I think once you get the elected officials, the ministers, the heads of state here, is typically in this process where you really begin to make some progress. And I think that's because they're closer to the people. I think they feel the pressure back home. You know, I think we work hard and others work hard here to hold governments accountable when they're not doing the right thing, to make sure that media back home in their country is aware of what's going on here. And so I do think public opinion is an important part of this process. I think you might not feel that the first week, but I think you tend to feel it in the second week.
What's your relationship with delegates? Do you get to see your own country delegates, or are you kind of mobilizing around other groups? And what do they think of you? Do they listen to you? We get the impression they're rather hard line, but that's again that's my outsider as an outsider journalist view. Do you go and see them? Do they talk to you? What do they say?
I mean, officially there are standing meetings with country delegations. Most countries tend to have. Some have daily briefings for NGOs from their countries. I think maybe the standard is sort of every other day or a couple of times each week. That's the official sort of operations. I think in terms of dealing with the United States delegation, and maybe Chris might disagree or have a little more finer point on it, but I think it would be fair to call it at best a dog and pony show, and in the sort of extreme worst case, just sort of nothing more than the same old trotted out poor excuses for lack of action and stalling and stonewalling and obstruction of moving the world forward to really tackle this problem seriously. It's actually somewhat disappointing to go into these meetings, particularly with the United States delegation, and have them tell bold-faced lies, misstep, speak, in obstructions and obtuse ways, and avoid real, honest, open dialogue on these issues. It's really a disgrace when you see these officials engage in this kind of behavior.
If I can, just quickly on that, I mean, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, being a part of Greenpeace, being here with a sizable delegation of my colleagues who are interacting with their country's delegations, with the EU, there's a real back and forth. There's the ability to talk to and work with delegations, both in official meetings and in the hallways. The U.S. delegation meets with the NGO community a couple of times throughout the course of the couple of weeks, and they essentially present to us. There is no back and forth. It really is a dog and pony show is kind. It really, we get spoken to, and then we're asked to leave the room. So there is quite a difference between the way those of us from the U.S. interact with our delegation and the way many others interact with their delegations.